If you've been enjoying R4E, the Reason for Everything podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all platforms or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm ready. Finally find the
Let's
spot that works.
I like it. Looks good. Well, welcome to R4E, the Reason for Everything podcast. Excited for today's episode with Neil Patel. You all probably know Neil as Neil Patel Digital. He is a digital marketing expert and guru, has taken the social media world by storm over the last decade plus, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Neil, you're a New York Times bestselling author, Wall Street Journal's top web influencer as well, and marketer. Those are just a couple of accolades, but I'd love to give you a chance to introduce yourself to my audience for the many, many things that I missed. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about the context that'd be helpful for me to know about you and your upbringing to, that really kind of outlined how you got to where you are today. But thanks for hopping on the show.
Sure. So born in London, grew up in Orange County, California, which is right next to Los Angeles, since I was a little baby, a few years old, and grew up here, middle class family. Mom was a teacher, dad was a loan processor, and I wanted a better life. And eventually, my parents saved. They weren't the best at making, but they were really good at saving and having amazing financial discipline. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I wanted to be rich. And that's how I started my journey. Bad way to start the journey. I learned that creating a business just to make money is not easy. You need purpose, you need to solve a problem, you need to help people. There's a lot of other things that come into creating a business and making it successful. A lot of my early businesses failed because they were created for the wrong reasons.
Beautiful. And you hear that all the time from people in your shoes. I hear that all the time from people in your shoes in terms of starting a business for the wrong purposes. What were some of those early ventures that you got going, and why didn't they stick for you outside of the wrong purposes? Was there a lack of product market fit? Was that what led you to get your agency off the ground today? Was the lack of maybe SEO and marketing behind it? Or what were some of those businesses that got you to where you are today?
Sure. My first business was Advice Monkey. It was a job board. It failed miserably. The main reason being is I created it because I couldn't find a high-paying job. So I created my own job board when I saw the financials of Monster.com because they were publicly traded, so their numbers were online. And I was like, man, if I create 1% of what they're going to, generate in revenue, I'm going to be rich. And it's not that simple to do that. My second business, when I created the job board, Advice Monkey, no one really came to us. I had to learn marketing. I paid a marketing firm, got little to no results. I was frustrated, broke, had to learn on my own, got decent at it. And which led me to my second business, in which it was a marketing company that helped people get traffic. Because I was good at the marketing side, I was terrible at the other side. And what I ended up doing is my first client was a power supply manufacturer. I got him from college. I was taking a nighttime college class when I was in high school. It was called Speech 101. Gave a speech on how Google's algorithm works. Someone said, hey, my boss is looking for someone like you. Someone in my company is. Didn't know much about it. They introduced me, got a gig, and eventually they paid me $5,000 a month. But we brought them a little bit more than 20 million a year in revenue from it. So they're really happy with the results and the partnership. And that business did well until 2008. Too much client concentration. Didn't realize that you can't have all your eggs in one basket. You should never have client concentration. Didn't build relationships with clients. We're just focused on the results. Didn't realize that if you build relationships, you're much more likely to keep them. From there, that business eventually shut down, focused on software instead, created a few software companies. One was venture-backed. The venture-backed one failed. It was doing really well, and then we got into some lawsuits over data privacy and rights. Even though we beat them with the government, we lost them in a class action because it was cheaper to settle than it was to fight it and beat it in court. But that really screwed the future of the company. We had a few people who wanted to acquire it, and a lot of customers left during that time. Had a lot of downs, had some ups during those journeys. The ones, one of the software companies we bootstrapped that did really well, still have it today. The reason I created the ad agency, call it 6 years ago now, is I saw a gap in the market in which people just didn't service the customers enough. Most of the big holding companies are owned by financial institutions that optimize for EBITDA instead of optimizing for results for customers. And that's how I got to NP Digital, and it's done decently well. We're probably close to 800-ish employees and still growing slowly but surely, even though this economy's bad, and just plugging away.
There's a lot I want to double click on there. First of all, certainly want to acknowledge your humility there in terms of the business doing decently well. From what I can tell, and in conversations you've had with others, it seems like you guys are on a one way ticket up and not stopping anytime soon. But maybe we start backwards with
I don't know if
with
it's that easy. I don't think it's that easy and simple, but overall, when you look at it from an outsider's perspective, sure, from beginning to now, it's done decent.
That's why I like to have conversations like this, because from the outside looking in, I see all of NP Digital all over my social media and LinkedIn, and so want to learn a little bit more. So to that end, you mentioned 6 years ago you got it started. The world of digital marketing and SEO is extremely different today than it was even 2 years ago, let alone 6 years ago. Top of mind for me is AI and TikTok. You've been on the cutting edge. You've obviously been on the cutting edge of these trends for a long time here. 6 years ago was probably right around the time TikTok was really starting to slowly gain traction in the US before 18, 19. But what was your headspace like attacking different channels at that time when you were getting started? Were you focused only on SEO? Were you focused on cross channel? What was, bread and butter NP Digital back when you were first starting?
Sure, bread and butter was SEO, and then from there we added in the other services because that's what people know me for, even though I do more than that. The big thing is AI is going to cause a lot of shifts in the space. Who knows? But here's an interesting stat for you, right? So everyone talks about AI, but very few people are reading AI-based content. And we surveyed 1,051 marketers. 12.3% are creating content through humans. The rest are either AI or a combination of AI and humans. And when we look at AI articles, we did a test and see how much traffic they get on Google versus human written articles. AI averaged 52 visitors a month. Human written content averaged 283 visitors a month. That's a 5.44x difference. When we look at content that's ranking on Google, human content outranks AI content 94.12% of the time. Now, am I saying this means AI is bad? No, by no means. I'm just saying it's just the early innings and we have a lot to see. But it's not as simple as just AI going and modifying the search experience. I do think it will change search. How? Time will tell. I think it's going to change it for more long tail queries than short tail. And I don't see Google just killing off SEO. And others may disagree with me with this, but there's one number tells a different story. And if I had to find that number, which I can pull it up, I got to scroll a little bit, but I know I can pull it up. It's close to here. I'm getting close. I know I talked about it in November. Let's see. Let's see. All right. I think I got it. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I like using actual numbers, so I'm not making crap up, and I'm actually telling people what's real versus what they perceive as real. So when we look at SEO and people are like, hey, it won't exist anymore, the number that I believe tells a real story is 32.78 billion. It's the amount of revenue. I don't have 2023 numbers, but I have 2022 numbers that Google generated from their partner network and ad revenue, aka AdSense. Now, those sites aren't bidding on paid ads to get that traffic because you can't send it back to Google profitably. You would lose money. So you gather that traffic through social media, organic, and SEO, organic. SEO provides a consistent traffic, more volume in the long run. And when you look at that, you think Google's is going to take a $32 billion hit in revenue and just replace it all with AI? I'm not saying over time they can't transition to it. They got to figure out how to make up that revenue gap. The market would crush them if they lost $32 billion and that just money evaporated. Not going to happen.
Yeah, super interesting. And to your point, I think there's a lot of long-term effects. We just don't even have a clue what's gonna come from it. And one of the things I find it fantastic about your content that you post on your personal account is the data-driven insights that you provide. to that end, is that something that you've always been good at? Have you always been a quantitative individual when you were taking your college courses in high school? Were you always excelling in statistics and mathematics courses, or has that been something that you shifted towards in your kind of later part of your career here now versus a natural skill set of yours? Where did that sit? Maybe call it when you were in school days. Were you always crushing it with statistics, or is this something that's helped you in your modern day now?
I did extremely well in stats in high school. I took AP stats, and I even passed the college exam when I was in high school for AP stats. But it was a subject that I always did well with. Math in general, I always did well in math, and I didn't really have to try. It just came natural. History, on the other hand, I couldn't read the textbooks. They're just I don't want to knock history. I think history is important, but a lot of those textbooks were just too boring for me to read. Again, I think our history is really important in the world. Um, but I love watching documentaries on history. I just hated reading those
Right.
thick books on history. And I did terrible on the test because I just wouldn't read them and I would guess on the problems.
I hear you. I hear you. I have one other question on the current state of the agency, and then I want to continue to work backwards. And that's, what are you most excited about in going into 24 and beyond? What's top of mind that's getting up to the desk every day that might be motivating you more than other things today?
What I'm excited about, most people won't be excited about. Interest rates are at all-time highs. I think this is the year to do acquisitions. We've done acquisitions in the past. We were able to do one last year for the agency particularly. This year, I'm hoping we can get across like 5, 6 acquisitions, um, and just to have a bigger global footprint and for expansion. That's really what I'm looking to do this year, and I think it'll be fun. It'll be expensive, but it'll be fun.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, especially you hear from a lot of operators today that with the cost of capital being where it is, that they're less incentivized to do acquisitions, especially if they're taking on any debt. But if you're in the position where you can either
Yeah,
refinance it
we'll,
down
we'll
the
use
road or use more cash.
we'll mainly use cash for the acquisitions. The debt's
Yeah.
too expensive. Our debt is really favorable. We use a bank called CIBC. We're at 3.25 plus SOFR, so the rate is actually very favorable compared to what most people are getting. There's of course people with lower rates than us, but there's no personal guarantor. They give us, they can give you multiples of EBITDA. They're really friendly, and when I look at, you know, the bank is, they're actually a partner. They're like, yeah, you guys should do more acquisitions. We'll help you out and stuff. And it's not expensive. Like we can buy a lot of companies at interest only, so it's not like we have to even pay down the debt. But we'll use majority cash over debt. I'm
Very
conservative
interesting.
on that
Now,
angle. I don't like debt,
you're a private
which
equity
is a
fund's
bad
worst
thing.
nightmare.
Yeah, yeah, and the problem is private equity funds do it in a much smarter way in which they grow more. But you have to keep in mind, I'm self-funded. I don't need to sell the company. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. We'll balloon up to over 1,000 employees just over through M&A within the next 12 months. Um, and I'm enjoying it. Like I can do whatever I want. And that's
You
why I
brought up an
don't want
interesting
tons
point,
of
and
pressure and debt.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, it buffered out on me there, so I think I interrupted you. So apologies. But one of the things you brought up was exactly a segue to my next question, which was, you mentioned that in the 3 or so startups you did before the agency, one of them was venture backed. That one failed. What's your current? I guess what's your thought on the current state of play in the venture world? It's been extremely dynamic for better and for worse over the last few years. What's your current state of play there, or current house view on the state of play there, and where do you see it going over the next few years?
Yeah, so the venture world, the way I look at it is it's a great place. But I think there's going to be a big shakeup that's going to happen. And I'm not an expert on this, but let's put it this way. AI is making it, or let's actually go back a little bit more. When I created one of my first software companies back in the day called Crazy Egg, it was expensive. We had to buy servers, put them in a co-location place, manage them, make sure they were up. Tons of hardware expenses, not like 10,000 or 100,000, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars. Then the cloud came out and a lot of people were able to copy us and others because it was just got much cheaper to build these companies. Then you fast forward to today, AI is doing what the cloud's doing. It's making it even cheaper and easier to build these companies. I think you're going to have two types of companies. One that doesn't really need much money at all, if any, and then ones that need a ton of money to accomplish what they're doing, like ChatGPT needs a ton of money. I don't see a ton of in-betweeners, right? I'm looking at the venture world as either like your startups now either need no money or a lot of money. I'm seeing the in-between just slowly start disappearing. And it's been going like that for a long time too. It's been trending that way. When I started in entrepreneurship, no one really raised more than $100 million. I'm not talking about a single round. I'm talking about in total between all their rounds. If you raise $100 million, you are going public.
Yep.
Now it's more so you can raise 100 million, $1 billion, even more in just one single round. And people are staying private much longer. And you're seeing these gigantic companies and they're going public much later. But it's either you can bootstrap and you don't need anyone's money, or you just need a lot of money to do something. I'm not really seeing it in between.
That steelmans your earlier thesis around AI, and that a lot of the tools that are out there today will probably continue to be streamlined and you know, lighter touch from a DevOps perspective, you know, with tools like low code or no code or any of the you know, Copilot softwares that come along with that as well. So I think that probably still into thought of, you know, as AI continues to mature, there's going to be more tools that will require less funding to build out a platform further, or you're going to be extremely capital intensive. So time will tell, but I tend to agree with you there.
Yep. So
go ahead, please.
Yeah, who'd you say that was their thesis? What person?
No, I was just steelmanning your thought there around if AI continues and or if as AI continues to grow and mature, it's going to be cheaper to build tools, and then the ones that are heavy and or heavy capital intensive businesses are going to be, you know, where it's going to be draining all the VC funding from, and a lot of the other ones are going to be lighter touch for a lot of the investors. But who knows?
Yep, I agree with you. I think that is what's going to happen. And again, I could be wrong, but that's where I see really the trend going.
The other thing you mentioned around, you know, when you were starting your entrepreneurial journey, the ecosystem's entirely different than it is today from in the world of socials. And you talk a lot about tying and building your personal brand with your digital marketing. What was it like for you when you were getting started out of school and really starting to dive into the world of startups? What was your headspace like? Were you in total CEO hat mode where you're just trying to build the business and you know, keep moving forward there, or what were you thinking in terms of building the Neil Patel brand that it is today?
Never thought about it that way. I was just trying to get customers and I didn't have the money. So I was just trying to put out content to try to get customers and market the company. That was the whole logic behind it. There wasn't a play to build a personal brand or anything. You know, I'm not that smart where 15, 20 years ago, I was like, you know what, I'm going to build a personal brand and it's going to be decent size over the years and it's going to do well for me. Like, I just was trying to get customers and I have the money to spend on ads.
What did your parents think when you were starting these businesses and bootstrapping? You know, especially from a middle class family, you mentioned they're great at saving, not necessarily the best at building or growing their funds. What was, you know, their response to you not following a traditional corporate path like out of school?
They're okay with it. Keep in mind, when I was like around 16, I was making 20 grand a month. So they were pretty
Right.
pleased. But, you know, it doesn't mean I was successful by any means. I also lost all that money plus more within, you know, the following year. So it wasn't as simple as like, yeah, look at this kid. He's making 20 grand a month. That's 240 a year. That's more than, you know, parents combined. Yeah, it was great, but I also lost it all. I kept doubling down and investing, didn't have focus, and that really bit me in the butt over the years. Eventually, I learned to focus.
What do you think was the driving force for you not, you know, putting it in cruise control and just, I mean, to your point, 240 is more than what a lot of, joint family households make in a given year. You're 16 years old. You had a probably cushy path to just living a pretty decent life. And obviously you mentioned that timing of it with customer concentration wasn't working in your favor there, but why didn't you just go and repeat
I
that
didn't have
business?
tons of those issues. Back then, you're talking about I was 16. That's, roughly 22 years ago. So times were different by then. Back then, you could buy a home for a lot cheaper than you could today. Homes weren't that expensive. I could have bought my parents' home for maybe like 300-400 grand back then. So it was good income. Things were working out. What I just ended up facing over the years was I quickly just learned that I wanted more. I don't know why, I just wanted more money. And when I was younger, I had more ambition for fancy stuff. Like I wanted more for cars and bigger homes and all that kind of stuff. And as I grew older, I stopped caring about the homes, the cars, the watches, like all that. I'm in a condo here in LA. My wife and kids, 2 kids, and my wife and I, we live in a 3-bedroom condo. And it's not huge. We don't even have a laundry room. We take the ironing board for the laundry and put it in the bathroom to iron the clothes because it doesn't fit anywhere else. Right? And it's not a big ironing board or anything like that, but like we're okay living a normal life. I don't need a lot of stuff. I drive around a Honda Odyssey as my main go-to car. It's like I was at an event the other day and one person had a Bugatti, the other person had a Ferrari. I drive around a Honda Odyssey. I don't really feel worse or better because of it. I like the car. It is what it is.
It's just,
And
fascinating when
what's
you hear
funny
time.
is I make more money now than I did in the past. You get what
Right,
I
right.
mean? And it's just like, don't really care.
Fascinating. It's, absolutely fascinating. How about for you, you bring up a point about your wife and kids. At what point, as you're building these businesses, did you meet your wife? Did Neil personal life start to bubble up and maybe distract you from the businesses at all? What was that like for you as an entrepreneur, startup founder? Because you hear a lot about balancing. There's all these biohackers now that are waking up early, doing the cold plunges, and trying to optimize their routine. Are you an optimizer? What was it like trying to balance building these businesses, going out on dates? What's all that like? What was all that like for you when you were going through that?
It wasn't bad. So when I met my wife, she eats similar to me. Her version of fun is watching a movie or going on a walk. She doesn't drink alcohol. She doesn't care to party. So it's really easy. And my wife wanted to spend all her time in philanthropy. I wanted to spend my time working. And then I wanted to donate my money before I die. And so we had very similar values, and there wasn't much of an issue. We're very family oriented. I see my family all the time. She sees her family all the time. Um, her parents live in the same building that we're in right now. Like life is pretty chill. You don't have to make it too complex. I don't optimize by trying to do cold plunges in the morning. I do work out every morning. Like when I say every morning, roughly 7 days a week I'm working out. I'm thinking about doing 2-a-days where I work out in the morning and I work out at night. I haven't started the 2-a-days, but I'm thinking about it. Um, don't really try to hack much. Try to eat healthy when I can and exercise, do outdoor stuff, walk. Try not to drive too much. And yeah, just enjoy life for what it is. And there's people who have it much worse. We have clean water, we have electricity, we have stuff that a lot of people don't have in this world.
Amen. I mean, I think about that all the time, and I talk all the time at work about champagne problems or uptown problems. The things that we're complaining about are so minuscule in the grand scheme of things, and people are begging to have the problems that we have, even on the smallest scale on a day-to-day basis.
Have you ever seen the Instagram video where they ask kids here in America on what they want when they grow older? What they
I don't think I
wish
have.
for?
No.
Okay, so the young kids are saying things like, I want gazillion dollars. I want to be a billionaire when I grow up. I want a gigantic house or a Ferrari, a BMW, etc. And then they ask the kids like in the Middle East and in random places like this and in third world countries, and guess what they're saying they want?
Clean water,
Clean
shelter.
water, food. I wish my brother was alive again. I wish, my dad was there and I could talk to him one more time in life. I wish I could get school books or education or be able to go to school. Eh, it makes you really realize what we have that other people don't. It puts
Mm.
it in perspective.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I feel like with the online personas now and everyone being so gaudy and so showboaty on I think probably because of Instagram and how that's changed, you don't hear the perspective of entrepreneurs in positions like yourself to share thoughts like that. So I don't think you with a thumbnail, posing in front of a Honda Odyssey would get as many clicks as someone else in front of a Ferrari, and
No,
that's why people don't do it. But
I actually
appreciate
should do
your,
it just for shits and giggles and see what happens. Maybe I'll
you
do it
should.
this
That'd be a
weekend.
hilarious post. That'd be a hilarious one.
Yeah, and you want to know what's funny too? When I proposed to my wife, I proposed to her with a ring that was less than 1 carat. It's almost 1 carat, but for a diamond ring, that's not that big, right? And it wasn't expensive or anything like that. I did decent at that time too. It wasn't like I was making 100 grand. I was making millions of dollars a year, right? My wife didn't care. And then I, what was it? 2 years ago, I took my wife to a jewelry store called Harry Winston, and I said, pick whatever engagement ring you have. Wow. And I showed her engagement rings for like 500 grand, 800 grand, some even upwards of $1 million. And you know what my wife said? She says, I want the ring that you proposed to me with when you didn't have as much money. And I said, honey, we still had money back then because the ring I proposed to her was just a temporary ring. And she was going to go pick whatever she wanted. She just never picked what she wanted. And I never went around pushing her, be like, hey, honey, you need to pick your real engagement ring. And, she's just like, I'd rather donate the money to someone else who needs it than spend that much on a ring. And I was like, that's why I married her. This is like, you don't need all this stuff. It doesn't actually make people happier. It's just this thing in their head that they believe it'll make them happier. It's ego and status and shit that doesn't matter.
A lot of what you've been outlining is similar to some of the, Buddhist talks, some of the talks about, law of detachment and things that are outlined in 7 Rules of Spiritual Success. Do you subscribe to any of that? Has any of that driven your, thought around ego and status and spending? You mentioned, you made $20,000 a month as a 16-year-old, so maybe experience has shaped your perspective here. But have you always thought that way? Or I know when you were younger, you mentioned you wanted to make a lot of money, but what was the perspective shift for you that happened to allow you to think that way today?
It was mainly experience. I haven't read any of those books or followed any of those practices. It literally was mainly experience. I've done stupid stuff. I spent too much money on watches, clothes. We do have fancy cars. Like I'm not going to be a saint and just say I have a Honda Odyssey. Like I have a full-time driver who works for me, and I have a decent Mercedes, and my wife has a Bentley. So it's like we do spend money on certain things. I optimize for convenience more than anything. Like I have a driver because I keep getting in car accidents, so that's why I have a driver, because I keep hitting too many things, including reversing out of the driveway and hitting my own car into, my own car. So like there was a point where it's just like, all right, maybe I need a driver. But it just comes from experience. You'll figure out what makes you happy and what doesn't and stuff like that. And like even the Bentley, the first time I got my wife the Bentley SUV, I got her a new one recently, but it was just the same version, just a newer model. And it was during COVID. It came. My wife's like, "Yeah, just put it in the car garage." She didn't care. She wanted it, but she didn't care. She didn't drive it for 2 weeks. It's just like for us, we'll buy some of those things if it's convenient. Like I spend a decent amount of money on clothes, but they're soft and they're comfortable dad clothes. They don't look cool. Don't really care.
The
So
Supreme logo up here.
exactly. What I think people have to figure out is what makes them happy in life, and that's what you optimize for. I've learned that convenience really pleases me and makes me happy, so I optimize to make my life convenient.
I love it. You mentioned you mentioned your wife's interest in philanthropy. You mentioned wanting to give your money away before you die. Are there any particular philanthropic causes that you're really passionate about, or that your wife's really passionate about?
Yeah, so we're not rich, so we can't do like what people like Bill Gates do and just try to solve problems everywhere in the world. So we
Right.
pick our causes with whatever little money we have, and we focus on children's education and children's poverty. And we do also try to help out kids with only one parent. We think it's tough to raise a kid when you have two parents. It's really tough when you have only one parent. So we try to really focus on children, children's education, children's health, poverty, all specifically revolved around kids. And it doesn't mean that our causes are better than others. It's we just pick what we feel really resonates with us and that we can make an impact with whatever little money we have.
That's the 2020s disclaimer you have to add at the end of any statement. You could say, "Hey, I've donated all this money to this philanthropy that I care about," and someone would still find a way to give you a hard time about it. But no need for the qualifier there.
I don't want anyone to take offense being like, "Oh, your charities suck," or "This one's better." I'm just like, look, it's what
I
resonates
know.
with us.
I know. Hey, let me ask you this: do you have you mentioned Bill Gates and some of these other folks? Do you have like a mentor or a person in the space that you look up to, whether it be in the tech ecosystem or the digital marketing ecosystem, someone that you lean on as you're making, to your point, you've self-funded this business, you have a lot of difficult decisions on a day-to-day basis, I imagine, someone that you lean on or tap to for advice or perspective?
No, I learn a lot by just reading. There's so many free websites out there. I learn a lot through watching videos, talking to people, going to conferences. I think mentorship is great. One too many people pay business coaches. I know it's a little touchy subject, but I hate the concept of most business coaches because a lot of them promise how they're going to make you rich. And I'm like, so you yourself, you did nothing. You became a business coach. You bought some Rolls Royces, and your accomplishments were you were a business coach. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but actually, I am saying there's something wrong with that. You're not going to help people make shit. All you're doing is just taking money and you're paying for your lifestyle by telling people you can provide all this crap.
There's a lot of people in Instagram comments that would sound off on you right there, but I think there's something to be said about it. I mean, I feel like every bio I click on nowadays is a coach, which, it's more power to them for making a living that way. But yeah, I hear you.
The other day I was reading a profile of one of the coaches and they put in their top 50 wealthiest people in the United States. Who actually puts that in their bio that you're the top 50 wealthiest people in the United States? Probably not someone who really is the top 50 wealthiest people in the United States. Like, let's just be honest here. If you were that wealthy, you would be on Forbes and you wouldn't want to tell everyone you're that rich because you probably wouldn't want the attention.
Nope. Yeah, spot on. Let
Everyone
me
who
ask
I
you.
know that has a lot of money, none of them want people to know that they have a lot of money.
Yeah, it's spot on. Let me
And
ask
none
you
of them
this.
go take pictures of their beach and their cars or any of that kind of stuff. Like, no, people who have planes and real money don't go just taking pictures of their planes all day long and showing it on the internet.
Have you seen the fake private jet studio in LA? It's like these guys hired a movie crew to build a inside of a private jet so influencers and people can go and rent out the studio for like $75 an hour to take pictures in there.
I did not, but I believe it, dude. I've been watching some Instagram videos and there's always these like pictures on people on a private jet and they'll do like funny skits on there or even like a commercial airline. And I'm like, this isn't a real commercial airline. The stewardess would have kicked you guys all out of the plane by now, right? And you can just see like the same people but sitting in different seats. Like you can tell they're paid actors. And it's just like, okay, this is totally fake, but I can see people building out studios for private jets and real ones. So, it's cheaper.
Certainly. How about for you and I mean, part of it's your job, right? You're trying to understand the latest and greatest trends you're reading. How do you balance screen time with productivity? I mean, these apps are so sticky. They're so good at distracting you from what you're actually trying to do on there. You're on Instagram doing your market research or trying to find a profile or whatever. How do you avoid the rabbit hole? How do you pull yourself out of it and, balance the screen time challenges that we all face today?
I don't really use most of those apps that often. Like, I probably
Yeah.
don't use social media for more than 30 minutes a day. So
Is
I
that
don't have
just,
that problem. I
yeah.
just don't log in as much.
How do
I
you,
think
how
it's
do you spend your free time when you're not working or spending time with your family?
I love watching TV, which again is a waste of time, but I love watching TV and I love reading. I probably read more than anything else. I don't know how many hours a day I spend reading, but it's a lot.
Are you a physical book person or Kindle or e-reader?
Laptop or iPad, and I just read articles from the web.
Love it. Love it. Well, Neil, I'm super appreciative of your time. I enjoyed our discussion today, and glad we got to meet. For those who were unfamiliar with you before the show, who are still listening, where's the best place to get in touch with you and to find you online? It's pretty easy to find you, Neil Patel Digital, but anywhere in particular you want to drive traffic?
Yeah, you got it. My ad agency, NP Digital or Neil Patel Digital. My website, neilpatel.com. My social handles, or I think almost all of them are Neil Patel.
Neil, grateful for you, grateful for your time, and excited to see where 24 takes you.